Blue octopus.
Blue octopus.
Blue octopus.
It's like it's one word. Blue octopus.
Blue octopus.
Blue octopus. Blue octopus.
Blue octopus. Blue octopus.
This is episode 2 of the Plotcast. Shout out to Neon Productions, who is one of the creators of this film, for having as many trailers as they could fit into a half hour as they possibly could. We had a lot of trailers to watch. Not that they were all bad. I'm just saying, when you go to see a movie in 2024, hit up the MacGuffins, which we'll get into what a MacGuffin is later.
I was going to say, what is a MacGuffin?
We're going to talk about MacGuffins. MacGuffins are going to be a topic.
I can't wait to learn what those are.
Right. So we're going to talk about a film today. It's called Longlegs. And it's probably one of those ones that I didn't know that much going into it. How much
I didn't even know Nicolas Cage was in it. So
yeah.
But the one thing I just gotta say, his nickname is Longlegs, but it would have been way cooler if he wore like some kind of small stilts and actually appeared to have very long legs, which he didn't. They were just normal legs, and I still don't understand the reference. Like, seriously, it would have been awesome if he had like really long legs. Do you know why? Or is that reference to Daddy Longlegs or something?
I guess, yeah, I did do enough research.
Daddy Longlegs are creepy, but actually, I don't like spiders, but I really don't mind Daddy Longlegs.
Well, the thing about Daddy Longlegs is that the weird thing that people would say, and I can't remember.
Oh, they're poisonous, but their mouth is too small to inject.
No, well,
that's something.
Yeah, we've heard about that, but also, even if that isn't true, the notion that they taste like flavors. So bananas was the one.
Oh, what?
Wow. When I was a kid, and I can't remember if I
just like them because it's almost like a kid drew a spider, and that's what.
Act like a 4-year-old and scribble this shit down.
And back, not to slay a lot of time on this, but he did reference Longlegs once. He's like, Longlegs, and he like showed his legs, and they weren't long. When he's talking, all
right. So no, it's important to get into the title. The title does matter, and it is called Longlegs, and the film is broken up into 3 acts, and it's obviously telling you when that's happening, when it's happening. And sorry, bless you.
Wow,
that was a big one.
Yeah. Well, it's for show.
We'll probably leave that in for show. I mean, speaking of people who can really play up a camera screen, Longlegs, the entire second act is pretty much carried by him, played by Nicolas Cage, wearing a heavy prosthesis. Nicolas Cage is kind of in his, I wouldn't say lion and winter phase, which is usually what they ascribe to, an artist's late phase that is consistent and good output. No, this is more like a roaring winter phase. We've already talked about Mandy, and I haven't even seen Pig, but I know there are many films that he's excelling in right now.
Yeah, I think he's hit a stride.
And this one doesn't fail to do that. I don't think that this film would have actually been as good without him. I don't think, even if I know if the affectations of his character are truly born from the script, or if he added to them, I don't know. I didn't do a whole lot of research before we did the script, but I did enough to know that it wouldn't be the film without him doing it the way he did it.
And one thing I'd like to reference the movie Black Phone. Have you seen Black Phone?
Black Phone?
Black Phone.
Black Phone. I have not seen.
With Ethan Hawke. He plays like a creepy guy. I'd love to see Ethan Hawke in Black Phone get together with Longlegs and just do some bad things to people. I mean, they're nasty, and they look really freaky. Like their makeup, and they're just scary.
And the film does no lying to you, or it's not coy about that being a central focus, because it says Nicolas Cage as Longlegs. Even the prosthesis is an important thing.
What does prosthesis mean?
Well,
is that like a fake face?
Yeah, prosthetics is like, and so prosthesis is just like a way to say the act of prosthetics. So I wanted to talk about how much we knew going in prior to the film, because we both were pretty raw and had no idea what was going to happen in the film.
And I thought it was gonna be more scary, and it was more of like a detective serial killer kind
Yeah.
of thing.
And it does this juggling of those two tropes, and it does it pretty adeptly. And that's why we were engaged throughout the film. It does harken upon a couple different films that we'll talk about in a little bit, but or at least two.
SOL, SOTL.
Oh, of course, yes. And just how it kind of takes elements from a couple different films and it puts them in a blender, but it doesn't fail in making those puzzle pieces still mostly fit into place by the end, subversing the films that, are worth comparing it to. Or
Yeah.
and one of the ways that we fall into understanding this true crime and the supernatural, which is the crux of the entire film.
Right.
One of the ways that we're introduced to it is in the codex, or like code, like we've seen it with the Zodiac killer, throughout history. And going into the film, we both kind of thought this was going to be somewhat true crime because of that codex sort of thing being pushed in a lot of the whatever you could see from trailers and such, but also that there was going to be some type of supernatural element, especially in the case of the name of the film, Longlegs, and also how the film literally does get into a very supernatural place. And it keeps you teetering between both of those angles, right?
Yeah, it does. And what we both really liked about the code
Yeah.
was, can I say it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
How quickly she solved it.
Yeah.
Come on, I don't want to waste 40 minutes of screen time, someone just scribbling on paper and going on a board and putting strings together and trying to figure out what this code means. She just figures it out and she's like, all right, I've read everything you said. We don't have to talk about it anymore. I've cracked the code. Let's move on. Kind of like microwaving a hot dog, just it's done.
It's the girl from it's Maika Monroe from It Follows, with the first thing I ever saw her in. For her to be doing this Jodie Foster-esque character with telekinesis, which is introduced early. So this whole supernatural element is taken at face value early. She's automatically deviating, or the film itself is automatically deviating from the Silence of the Lambs tropes, despite having literally some of the same wardrobe from
the
Silence of the Lambs.
FBI, the generic FBI jackets.
The movie takes place in the 90s, and I don't know exactly what year, but there's probably some document or piece of lore within the movie for the year, but you get told that pretty much from Bill Clinton being in the FBI office in the background in the painting.
He's actually in a few different scenes in that movie.
Bill Clinton?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's in the FBI's. I mean, they're supposed to keep a picture, I guess, in movies of the president in the FBI office ever since it originated. But they're using a lot, because the time and place, it is very akin to Silence of the Lambs in the attire from, the second scene. But what we get is an introduction to telekinesis as an actual construct, and the FBI being interested in it and testing it. Do you remember the scene where they're asking her to respond with random names and words to what she sees on the screen on a projector, right? So the FBI is trying to harness her as a power in some degree, or they're studying her as a curiosity. And this drives a lot of the plot, and why she has this telekinesis is a huge driver for the ultimate thread of the film, which is...
What did she say too? I've just always had this, or...
Yeah, she says
but
it's like
there's no like origin story.
It's almost like a tap on the shoulder or something. Well, the origin story kind of comes out throughout the third act, is the origin story, but the way she lives and deals with herself with these powers seems to be taken at face value.
Because there's that one scene at the beginning where she just, he's in that house.
Yes, anyway. and then you have a very abrupt beginning.
Her buddy gets shot in the face.
Just
that was very nice of her. Hey, go there, get your face blown off.
I mean, there is a way you can interpret it as like, oh shit, she just basically wrote that guy's death sentence. Right then and there. If they don't hearken to it enough, there's even a shot where the main character's boss is running in the same gray sweats outfit with sweat stains that Jodie Foster has at the beginning of Silence of the Lambs.
Oh, that's right.
Something else that seems and bolsters self-referential knowledge of how the movie's presenting itself from the get-go is we are given this codex from early on in the film, so we're hyper aware of it. And Jeff's right, and I agree with him. We don't deal with the codex after the first act at all. It's pretty much done after the first act, and the movie's split up into 3 acts. And what's interesting about the codex is it comes with a lot of sigils and signifiers that do seem to show up cinematography wise that are kind of cool and worth mentioning. There's a lot of parallel lines. There's even so much as, people wearing certain like name brand shoes that have parallel lines on them in some of the initial credits. A lot of this stuff cinematography wise is set up to play into those tropes. So much so that the cabin that we see our lead character in has ports that are going from room to room that are upside down U's, which are one of the sigils in the sigils of the film.
Lots of upside down triangles too.
Lots of upside down triangles, which becomes a theme, as well as other things that are just situationally and cinematographically situationally and cinematography wise are obviously chosen to frame and accentuate this. But we're both very happy in the story eschewing this pretty quickly and getting to where it wants to go in the second act.
I'm also happy that she has no love interest, because that would make the movie another 20 minutes longer. And
which is another.
She also I don't think she wants to be loved.
Yeah, well, also, yeah, she has this inherent. She feels flawed as an individual, possibly by having her traits. She never seems to glorify them. She seems to almost resent them in a way or not understand them fully. And that's also similar to Silence of the Lambs. In this film, it's pretty cut and dry that our main character does not have love interest, and it would disservice the film tremendously because we spend most of the second act getting to know the real character or the actual person who is important. The Plotholes. A lot of curiosities about Longlegs beyond just doing the cipher, because we're introduced to him with the cipher, but we learn pretty early on that he seems to affix most of what he does to a higher power. It's not just him. He seems to accredit a higher power pretty early on in the way he responds and interacts with other people. And that drives the entire second act. Within the second act, we meet him and spoiler alert, how would you describe okay, so we meet him in the second act.
We also lose him.
In the second act.
I would just say it's some of Cage's better work. And
in
it's
his
Cage
late
doing
era.
Cage
on Cage with prosthetics and with great fucking gore design.
Yeah.
It's very good.
That was a tough scene to watch.
Yeah. In general, a lot of the stuff that takes place or is referenced in flashbacks has this sort of 8mm feel, even with the camera before you actually see the initial title screen. The camera remains in sort of an 8mm 3x4-ish type of dimension that slowly pans out to a full widescreen. And it'll cut back and forth between that kind of framing throughout the film. And there's a lot of times where they're trying to make sure you know what time period it is in, and hinging upon how they can give you so many puzzle pieces with this time trope and then leave these blanks for you and red herrings. The film's good at red herrings. And when we're talking about red herrings, we're also talking about, we could be quickly talking about things like MacGuffins or the word.
So what word kind of Easter eggs kind of replaced red herrings, right, as a term?
So yeah,
I mean, they mean a little bit different, but Easter. I'm just so sick of. Well, when I think of Easter egg, I think of Marvel movies.
what
Did
why
you see an Easter egg?
why do
Deadpool's left foot was in the
do you mean
back
like
of the scene or something.
at the end of credits and shit? Like
Yeah, Easter eggs or whatever, but red herrings. Let's get this straight because it's been a while since I've used that term. A red herring is something you see that's gonna come into play later on in the film, mean something later.
It's meant to divert.
Is that right?
Yeah, it's meant to
Oh.
divert your attention from the future.
That's okay.
Actually, it's like the thing that leads you away from the real. And so they give you just as many red herrings as they do like actual.
Because once again, some of our audience might not be super hip to the term red herring, even though
So this is also called a plot coupon.
let's stick with red herring.
Yeah. Are you sure you don't want plot coupon? Because that sounds like a.
Well, we can use a lot of.
No, we're not going to use plot coupon.
Let's get red herring back in your average person's vocabulary.
If we're going to strike a difference, a MacGuffin is a plot device that is there to drive the plot forward, but doesn't necessarily have something to do with the ultimate idea of what the plot is. So, in this case, you could even argue this is getting into the later stages of the film. We start having a lot of pseudoscience, as in not necessarily pseudoscience, but they try to put a lot of quasi hard science to give you this sense of the supernatural, the biblical versus scientific and real. And one of the ways that they lean into the scientific and real is via these balls that get put inside of these dolls' heads that resonate a frequency. Now, this does one of those things as a plot device where it isn't fully pushing the plot forward and gets an answer, but it does push the plot. It pushes things forward regardless. It's not a full MacGuffin because usually MacGuffins, they get stereotyped as being early.
Okay.
They'll happen early on.
So a late
MacGuffin. A late MacGuffin. Where we might have a late MacGuffin or two in this film, but they still fit this like dichotomy of trying to keep us in this field of what, like we're halfway in the real and halfway in the supernatural.
Okay,
right?
yeah.
Like we never feel totally in one space, but if we're going to be, paying attention to these sigils and all these things on top of it, it's hard to pay attention to the actual plot devices that are happening later on. So they give us access to the main character once the second act starts and he becomes principal, and Cage pretty much as Longlegs takes over the entire screen.
Yeah.
Like, how would you describe Cage's performance in this film?
Dominating for the entire second act, I guess. But then he still lingers, even though he's gone. Like, I feel his presence.
He's totally there for the third act as well, right?
Yeah, I mean, I feel his presence. I feel the Longlegs.
Well, I think because he like has this obsession with a higher. He wants you to think bigger than him. Cage,
wasn't he like? It doesn't matter. Like, I'm finishing the job will be finished even if I'm not alive.
Yeah.
So like,
which has like a 7 element to it. If you've seen the movie 7, which isn't one of the films I would principally compare this to, but Longlegs as a motivator does have that 7 element to him. But I wanted to ask you, there's affectations about this Longlegs character. What do you remember from like his like persona as like an individual, like his
dwelling?
His dwelling. How would you describe it?
I mean, this is gonna sound kind of a cheap description, but just a genuine creep. Like, just if I saw that guy out of my window at night, I would freak out.
Other than his look, what about like the room that he's in?
The room he's in, man, jog me.
Familiarity with a certain type of music
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
He
Yeah.
he has
He
an
loves
obsession-
T-Rex.
Yeah.
He's obsessed with T-Rex, which that's so weird. I think of T-Rex as fun. Just
Wait, you don't think Longlegs is fun?
I don't think Longlegs is fun. Yeah, it really scratched me funny that he listens to T-Rex.
Kind of violated your idea.
Yeah, I mean, I
Well,
can't
okay.
believe I forgot that. He's like the whole movie. I'm like, why did they make this guy listen to T-Rex?
Yeah.
like which is actually makes him more interesting.
Yeah,
Sure.
and it
But, like-
also, throws back to Silence of the Lambs with Goodbye Horses. Just having like somebody who's into kind of a glam or proto glam rock, I guess.
Yeah.
In this case, there's also a picture of Lou Reed.
Yeah,
That famous picture where it's blown out, so he looks kind of like zombie essentially.
yeah.
And also, there's a couple other pictures that like harken
So
to.
he had decent taste in music. Longlegs did. I mean, the other things he did in his life, are in poor taste. But
What do you think? Do you think Longlegs would listen to something like King Gizzard, or what do you think?
oh
Longlegs
god,
would
I can't stand King Gizzard and the Izzard Lizards.
I feel like that's what Longlegs listen to nowadays, though.
King Gizzard and the Lizard Izzards.
What about My Morning Jacket? Maybe you'd listen.
No, I don't think we'd listen.
You don't think so? Okay, fine.
Do you
Try
think
the.
you would?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. They've gone through some phases. I don't know.
That'd be cool if we could interview Longlegs.
That would be cool. It'd also be terrifying. Why the fuck do you think that's cool?
It would be cool.
It would
We're
be
not
cool.
12-year-old girls.
Behind glass. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
we're not dolls that he's gonna make. So he is motivated by revelation, which is singular, by the way. Biblical imagery,
Dolls.
T-Rex, and then dolls, cesarean sections. We have snakes that are in a very red color.
They randomly or blast us with these images of snakes, like not even cool looking snakes, and not even like you can't even see their heads. It's just the bodies of snakes kind of moving for like what 3 seconds at a blast.
And it's with a red tint on it.
Completely unnecessary.
It's kind of so there is.
I would like to get a version of me without that.
I feel like there is a lot of this dichotomy between scientific hard science where the mortician, holds up some type of apparatus to these balls that somehow are hypnotizing and,
Yeah.
attuning people to do things, as well as biblical gets with, snake references to, Adam and Eve. And we've already talked about Adam and Eve in this podcast once already, and we're on the second episode. So getting ham-fisted that
Wow.
imagery on top of all the good revelation that they do in the film, it seemed the most ham-fisted image that they could push on us.
Other thing, I swear, someone in that movie said, "Oh, he's a really skilled dolls maker." His dolls looked horrible. They were terrible, and then also like, who wants a doll that's 4.5 feet tall? He's giving these 12. First of all, 12-year-old girls, I don't think want dolls anymore. But also, I don't know one 12, 13-year-old kid that would want to carry around a 4-foot doll that looks like them.
And
So the whole, hey, you want a doll? Most families would say, you don't take dolls from people you don't know. I think that's like you just don't take a doll from somebody you don't know.
and also those dolls look very heavy. If you watch the film, the dolls that we're talking about, the non de plume, the Longlegs character, arrested in the second act, we actually get the antagonist taken in for questioning everything about that was like probably the coolest part of the film, in my opinion. Cage really carries that, and that shot of him getting caught.
I love that where he's standing in front of the cornfield and he's just like,
He's got
2 suitcases. He's ready to skip town, but then he's kind of like, he doesn't really give a fuck, which is even scarier.
that's what makes it so scary.
He's just like, all right, take me.
He's like, they're gonna catch me or they're not, and he's still gonna sing.
But he didn't even like run or
He's still gonna sing. And that's the other thing, is this affectation of him wanting to sing almost like a rock singer all the time, as well as being this doll maker. It's so wildly like well done. He just kind of nails it, and it really does carry a lot of the film. One thing I wanted to mention is the sound design. Really good sound design that isn't necessarily like a total giveaway to what's coming up, but does a really good job at sowing some seeds that aren't necessarily red herrings at all, or MacGuffins. They literally kind of tell you a lot of what's going on. If you're a sound geek like me, whenever there's a phone, and this is a trope with a lot of horror films nowadays or thrillers, is that you have to set it in a time period before cell phones to really give an accurate take
Right.
on suspense or create a plot moving device to move forward. And so people are picking up landlines a lot in this film, which it leans into the mid 90s feel. And did you notice anything peculiar about the phone calls in the film?
I did not until you kind of told me afterwards what I completely missed. But I think
It's not that you missed a bunch. It would have been hard to
I know, but
notice.
it's huge. Yeah, you were being hyper
The hyper realism.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you have big ears.
Yeah, I guess I have big ears. But this is where the movies might be worth a rewatch if you've seen it once. There's a couple different scenes where the protagonist is picking up a phone, whether to it's usually to answer it, and you will hear some static that sounds like it's supposed to be satanic in origin, and a lot of that satanic thread will continue throughout the film. But very specifically, one of the first conversations she has, the protagonist, is with her mother on the phone. Her mother comes off as very normal,
hippie.
almost
She's like a Christian hippie.
yeah, like a little bit daffy, like up in the clouds, as well as Christian. And she asks about saying prayers and things like that. All that could be a red herring at that point in the film, right? She's just because there are some horror films where you never actually see the adults. It's like that Peanuts trope where all the adults are just womp 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 womp.
I love that.
Yeah. But in this film, if you listen to the first couple phone conversations, there's some awkward long pauses, and there's some awkward differences in the background noise in the telephone conversations during those awkward long pauses. I believe, and I could be wrong, but if you go through and you actually see the film to the conclusion and you know what the final conceit is and you see behind the final curtain, that makes sense. You think that her phone might be tapped because she works for the FBI and you hear the phone tap noise. But maybe it's not the FBI who's the third party listening in on her phone conversation.
I agree.
Yeah. Yep.
No, I would like to challenge our listeners to decide if this is what your theory is somewhat half baked. It's not proven.
Well, yeah, I want to.
But if I do see the movie again, I think I'm going to focus on
The
it.
satanic stuff isn't half baked. I would stand.
No,
when she picks up the receiver, that's not half baked at all. I would.
I'm just saying your full theory.
There are extra curious long pauses that I noted from the first telephone conversation, which actually technically should make sense agreeably if Longlegs is immediately leaving a letter at her house afterwards. But moving ahead, a lot of double entendres in this film, especially when we're talking about Christianity, Christian tropes, things that are said, whether it's a lyric, revelation, or like biblical origin, or some thing that Longlegs says themselves. The big man downstairs, the man at the bottom of the stairs, or all that stuff. Those are, once again, they make a lot more sense when you see the end of the film, because who's at the bottom of the stairs, right? How early in the film did you feel like you knew how the film was going to end?
I would say I didn't have any idea. Once again, like, I kept thinking it was going to be a scare you out of your chair kind of movie. Like,
But it was more of like a thriller, right?
it was more of a thriller. It was more of a, the FBI part of the movie was a huge part. Like,
Yeah.
it wasn't just a horror. It wasn't a horror. It wasn't even a horror movie.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. It's
but
like a,
I felt like everyone said it was.
it's a
That's why I was
supernatural
surprised.
thriller.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Would you throw psychological in there too?
yeah.
Supernatural psychological thrill / psychological thriller. That's a lot of wordage, but
But it's right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it feels like when you're done with it.
and that's fine. I don't know if it was just people or the preview I saw, but I was expecting like kind of almost a cheesy horror movie. That was like not what it was at all. So
Yeah, it wasn't cheesy.
No.
I'll say that for sure.
you know what's going to happen if Cage isn't busy next year? Origin story. Longlegs origin story.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
And I would actually want to see it. They don't really explain.
Some things are best left unexplained.
Well, I know, but they're gonna do it.
It depends. I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if they don't, but I feel like the best horror movies always leave just enough outside of reach. This film did a good job at both doing that and then also giving you the full view by the end in a way.
Yeah.
As far as what you needed to know about Longlegs or the philosophy or the overall religious trope or what, the ending was. I mean, Men ended with a flashback that was super, real. It was surreal in the way that it ended with all these, births. And we got, a heavy-handed dose of Christianity at the end. Like, I mean, like, if you had to describe Longlegs if you knew him in person, how would you describe him? Like, you didn't know he was like a doll maker necessarily.
I think if I met him, I'd assume he's a doll maker. I would judge him harshly from the get-go. Yeah.
Why would you judge him harshly? Would it be that he's like really like a good singer
His
and really wants to
face,
push his
voice, his gait, everything of his station wagon, like everything about him. I mean, that scene from the hardware store, the girl's reaction, Dad, that creep's in here again. That's how my first encounter with him, it would be that.
That is like one of the best scenes in the film because it's actually that's the first scene you actually see his face in totality.
The plot holes.
No, we both felt that we walked out of the film satisfied.
Satisfied, and also I didn't think, man, is this going to drag out? It didn't drag out.
Yeah.
It just kind of ended the way it should have. And we would like a prequel. Those metallic balls in the doll's head make people kill their families, but
yeah,
could it be?
Yeah, see, lady,
church lady, yeah,
yeah, maybe
for all you youngsters out
yeah,
there.
maybe Longlegs when Nicolas Cage was practicing in front of the mirror, he was like, I'll do 50% 70s rocker like Robert Plant, 25% awkward looking doll maker, and then 5%, 10% the church lady from SNL, Dana Carvey style. But I would give this, I don't know, in the thumbs up scale where you.
So we have a total of 4 thumbs between the two of us.
Mm.
I'm gonna give it 1.5 thumbs up.
Okay. I'm gonna do a full 2.
So we got 3.5 thumbs.
Yeah, we got 3. So we got 3, or is that right? Yeah, we got 3.5, 3.5 thumbs. I feel like Longlegs has some legs to it. Or a sequel.
Bad pun, man.
Sorry, there's a prequel or a sequel or whatever happens. I'm still gonna probably buy into it.
Yeah, I would.
See what happens. It like had such a good presentation. It was. Except for the red snakes. Yeah.
What assholes like, we need to put the snakes in. We need to put the snakes in.
We got
once.
We got at least 4 snakes in a box. We gotta get 4 snakes in a box in this film. And they gotta be red every time.
My biggest gripe about the movie, I think, is gonna be the snakes, which is a total of about 12 seconds of running time.
So it's either 3.5 thumbs up or 4.5 negative snakes, red snakes, one or the other. Yeah, but we thought it was a good film. It's definitely if you're into weird stuff that is meant to take things that you already like films like Silence of the Lambs, Sinister,
And a dash of Nicolas Cage freaking out.
where anybody's trying to give you red herrings, MacGuffins. Drink all you can at MacGuffins beforehand before the second act finishes. This is Plotholes. This is a podcast Jeff and I do. We're trying to do more episodes. So if you're into the podcast, please like and subscribe.
Yeah.
And fill in the holes with us or just make them bigger because we're more like assholes than plot holes. Woo!